Hello, and welcome back to Coffee and Kale. My name is Nicole, and today we are here with Shawanda Robinson of Village Premier Collection of Maryland. She's a real estate agent who works primarily in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And we are going to talk all about what it takes to get ready, to either get ready to become a buyer or to get ready to become a seller. And if that sounds interesting, please keep watching. Welcome.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
joining me
I appreciate
today.
you having me. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the
Thank
invite.
you. So, you have been in real estate for right about 8 years now, right?
That's correct.
And you work with buyers and sellers?
Yes.
Okay.
Both.
What would you say you work more with? More buyers, more sellers, or about half
Um,
and half?
it depends. Sometimes it's more buyers,
Okay.
sometimes it's more sellers, but I definitely enjoy working with both
Okay.
both sides.
And it just depends on what the market's doing or who
Yeah, or
sees the
who
advertisement at the time,
correct.
right?
Depends on who has the need and if they're
Yeah.
buying. Sometimes people are buying and selling. Sometimes people are just buying. Sometimes people are just selling.
Right.
So it that definitely varies.
Okay. So we are going to spend our time today talking about getting
Okay.
ready to either buy or sell.
Okay.
So when you are first introduced to a buyer, now this is my impression. Tell me if I'm wrong here. As a loan officer,
Okay.
I perceive that when people are looking to get on the buy side, when people are looking to get into the market, they usually find a realtor first. Do you find people that have not spoken to a lender yet when they find you? Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay.
I would say the majority of people that have come to me do not have a lender yet.
Okay.
Some people have started the process because somebody knew somebody that
Mm-hmm.
they knew, or they went to their local bank, things of that nature. So sometimes they have it, but it's very rare that people have a lender already. But sometimes yes.
Okay, so what does that first conversation look like when someone says, "Hey, I want to buy. I'm thinking about being, I don't know, I want to be in DC or I want to be in Virginia." What does that conversation look like? What do you talk about on that first?
On that first conversation, we're talking about pretty much their goals, where they
Mm-hmm.
currently are. Like, so some people want to move because my lease is up in a month. My lease is
Okay.
up in 2 months. It's coming up. I want to be in my new place. So I start out with trying to get an understanding of what their particular needs are.
Okay.
Some people is that they're relocating. It could be a everybody has a different reason why they want to buy. Some people want to buy because they're looking for generational wealth. Well, some people want to buy because they're tired of paying a landlord. So I start that initial call with
Okay.
finding out what their exact goals are for
Okay.
being a homeowner. And from there, we talk about their timelines.
Okay.
So some people want to be a homeowner in 2025. Some
Yeah.
people want to be a
That's
homeowner
fair.
next month. So I
Yeah.
have to find out what their particular needs are, and
Okay.
then we go from there, and then I connect them with a lender that I know, such as you,
Yeah.
that I
I didn't
know.
pay for that plug, guys. Go ahead.
No, but really, you've been awesome through
Thank
with
you.
my clients.
Thank you.
So I do connect them with the lender that can help them
Okay.
with the process. That knows if they're looking to do programs, a lender that does a lot of HPAP, or a lender that does the Virginia programs, MMP, someone that's familiar with programs or whatever the needs are of the client. And we
Okay.
go from there, connecting them with the lender. After they've spoken with the lender, we will find out where they stand, because
Okay.
that's always the thing. Is some people are like, well, I don't want my credit pulled right
Mm-hmm.
away, but you can't get around your credit. And I say to people all the time, if your credit is where it gets pulled and you're not going to get approved, then you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be approved anyway.
That's
So it's
fair.
not
That's a
gonna
good point.
it's
That's
not going
fair.
to kill your credit. If
Yeah.
this one credit pull is going to kill your credit, then you're probably not in an approvable
Yeah.
range
That's
anyway. So it's not going to kill your credit.
yeah, that's
So
fair.
yeah, we can't get around that.
Yeah.
So once we know where they stand, we move
We
forward.
go from there.
Mhm.
One of the things I find about credit specifically, it's probably the most insecure piece of a buying process for a buyer when
Mhm.
I haven't done it before or just are unfamiliar with it. I used to really dislike, I don't want to get like censored or have a nasty lawyer email in my inbox. I
Okay.
used to not like the Credit Karmas and the Equifaxes because
uh,
they're not accurate, right?
right.
However, I have grown to appreciate they're part of this process, because
Mhm.
if you have a Credit Karma account, it's probably not accurate, but it will give you a buffer. It's within 20-ish points,
It
plus or
can.
minus.
Yes.
And I often, when I talk to people who are in this getting ready stage, right? I don't know if I should. Somebody told me I should call you, but I don't want you to pull my credit. I'll tell them to go look at their Credit Karma or their Equifax or whatever service they have.
Right.
And you're probably within a 20-point range. Do you find any benefit in those services or referring people to those kinds of things? Or what other kind of tools do you use when people are looking to get ready?
Yes, so I definitely think that people, because I definitely found that when people say, "Oh, my credit score is this,"
Mm-hmm.
they usually have a good idea. That's been my experience
Okay.
because they do subscribe to one of those types of services, so
Yeah.
they kind of monitor it up and down. So I've had it where one of those services like Credit Karma has been actually dead on, so
Really?
really. So
That's good to hear.
it's been so I guess it's like everything else is like a roll of the dice
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
that one has been, I had a client who she was like, "Well, my credit score is this and it did this." And I mean, every single time it was exactly what it said. And I
Really?
was like, "Okay,
That's
well,
interesting.
right." And then I've
Okay.
also had people use ones, some of the ones that are like, I think it's like My FICO or something, which is
Okay.
a little bit more
Mhm.
I forgot, more closer to
It
what
goes
you
directly to
see.
FICO. I think,
Right.
yeah, some of the
Closer
paid
to
services do get closer.
Right. So
They're more
it is
accurate.
like
Yeah.
about, it's you pay more than say a Credit Karma or whatever, because Credit Karma is usually free, but
Yeah.
it is a more accurate depiction of your credit score.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we've talked about getting ready to be a buyer. What about sellers? How do you prepare sellers when they call you and say, I need to move, I'm thinking about whatever? What kinds of advice do you give sellers?
So I want to start with finding out if they have like a mortgage on the
Mm,
property,
okay.
or if it's free and clear, because one, I want to give them an accurate picture of what to
Mm,
expect, or a estimate of what to expect when they sell, after we've done run comps, which are looking at the sales that have sales in the other areas around
sure,
their home.
sure.
So once we do that, I want them to find their mortgage statement, have a good idea of what their balance is on their
Okay,
mortgage. Secondly, I want to visit the house,
okay.
see for myself, looking at the house through the eyes of a buyer, in a sense,
Okay.
because I've worked with so many buyers. I know what their things,
Yeah,
buyers have things, and
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Um, One of the biggest things that helps sellers get ready is if at all you can depersonalize and
Mm,
declutter your space.
okay.
Because if you've been living in a house, it doesn't take long, we
Yeah,
accumulate
yeah,
things. So if you've been living in a house for 15 years, you've
yeah,
accumulated a lot of things that you've just walked by,
yeah,
you don't use,
yeah,
you're not
yeah.
using it, you're just walking by it because it's there.
Exactly.
So decluttering and depersonalization is a really big thing. If you can't
Yeah.
do anything else, because sometimes sellers can't or don't want to make repairs.
Mhm.
Luckily for the sellers that do want to make repairs and they can't pay right away,
Mhm.
I do have services that can make repairs, make renovation. I have
Oh, yeah, I've heard about
I have vendors
those.
that can help you if you wanted to upgrade your bathrooms and all of those things, and you didn't want to
Mhm.
come out of pocket. If you have enough equity in your home, you can get those repairs and those renovations done and then pay at closing. So
Yeah,
that's a really great thing to get you top dollar
yeah,
as a seller, if you so need it, because
yeah,
sometimes you haven't, you're in your house, you may take good care of the house, but you may not have upgraded that
yeah.
bathroom, you may not have upgraded the kitchen and the house down the street. So for this, and you want
Right,
the same amount of money that they
right.
got, you have to get your house to that level.
So that's a good point. I'm sorry to mean to
No,
interrupt you.
no, that's fine.
I mean, that's a good point. As a seller, you should probably be prepared to spend a little money to put your house on the market. And maybe it depends on the target market, right? Because if you want to sell your house to a buyer, you might need to upgrade the bathrooms
Correct.
or something along those lines. But if you're looking to get out as fast as you can, you
Mhm.
might be willing to take a little bit less from an investor buyer. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
That is very fair to say.
Yeah.
So when the buyer pools are normally, of course, investors and people
Mm-hmm.
who want to live in the house. If I want to live in the house, most of the time, especially if I'm a first time buyer,
Yeah.
I don't want to go in having to do a full renovation.
Right.
Most first time buyers are not taking on a full renovation. They may
Yeah.
do cosmetic work,
Right.
right, like paint, carpet,
Take up the
flooring.
carpet. Right.
Right,
Right.
but they don't want to go in and fully gut a
I
house.
see.
So if you want top dollar, you do have to make it where someone who wants to live in the house will pay that top dollar, because an investor is going to want to always pay the, not fair market
It's
value.
right. It's more return on investment than it
Right.
is what school
Correct.
district am I in?
Right.
Got
So
it.
they're more concerned with, okay, I want to get this house for the least amount of money so that I can either take it to buy and hold it, or
Yeah,
buy and flip it.
got
So
it.
they're looking to go in low and then, make the most on their
Well,
returns.
that's why it's probably positive for a seller to work with someone like you who works with a fair amount of buyers,
Correct.
because you have that, okay, if Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if this is your target market, this is the kind of things that buyers are looking for now,
Yes,
right? Like, I don't know if it's still a thing, but an open floor plan was a big thing
it
probably
is.
3 or 4 years ago, right? So if you go into like my house, for example, which was built in the 50s, I have a proper kitchen, which I love.
Right.
It's a tiny little thing, but it's closed off. I love it. It gives that like presentation when you bring dinner out. Like
Yes,
you didn't get
yes.
to see it all in the making.
Right.
But buyers now probably are not happy with that kind of thing. I mean, my kitchen is probably, I'm not very good with measurements, but maybe like 8 by 11.
Okay.
I don't know, it's not very big.
Right.
I love it. But if we wanted to sell, I would probably have to open it up to attract a buyer.
So
Okay.
that is also relative in
Okay.
a sense, because there are still people who love a separate
Yeah.
dining room. They don't
Yeah.
want
I love it.
some people don't want everything. I've had
Yeah.
one client who, she said, I did not, when we were looking for a house, she said, I don't want anybody to just walk in and see me cooking.
Yeah.
Like, she did not want
Yeah.
that. And if you have an open floor plan, of
You
course, when you
got
walk in,
that.
you see
Yeah.
everything, so
Yeah.
it's honestly very relative to
Yeah.
whoever it is, because some people love the open floor plans and some people want separation.
Yeah.
So it's a
And maybe
preference.
that's where that CMA comes in, right? So if you're
Right.
talking to a seller and they want top dollar, well, you might have to, most of the houses in this area that have gone for the price you're looking for had an open floor plan or
Right.
this or that. So it can become hyper local very quickly, I suppose.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So for buyers, when they're getting ready, I've heard most of the motivation is like actual readiness, like credit
Mhm.
readiness, preparedness. Savings, would you say, is another? Is
Savings
like,
is definitely
okay.
a big thing, because
Okay.
it's also, some people don't have enough saved,
Yeah.
so it depends on, that's where those programs come in,
Yeah.
if they qualify, so that's
Yeah.
the other part of why it's good to go to a lender to find
Yeah.
out, do you qualify for any of these programs, because you can reduce the amount that you need to save
Yeah.
if okay, well, I'll be able to get X amount of dollars from MMP. I'll be able to get
Mhm.
100,000 from HPAP, whatever that is.
Mhm.
Okay, so my amount goes from 20,000 to maybe 10 or
Yeah.
5 or
Yeah.
0, depending
Yeah.
on
That's
which
right.
types of programs you're able to use. And since you can layer some of them
Can.
too, you knowing that exactly how much you need to save is
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
because you have to know about, if you're looking for a $500,000 house, you need more to close than a $300,000
Right.
house. So
Yep. And here's why I'll put a plug in. So we're talking about the MMP and HPAP. These are DC, Maryland, Virginia programs, but there are programs nationwide.
mhm.
Bond programs. I'm showing how long I've been in the market by using the word bond, because most of them have some fancier name now, but there are nationwide programs that will give you 3.5, sometimes up to 5% to use towards your down payment.
Mhm.
And if savings or cash to close is an issue, let's talk. And this is not like a plug for me, because this is really intended to be an educational channel, but you want to talk to someone who can connect you with folks nationwide that might be able to help you kind of skin that cat, so to
Correct.
speak, on how to get cash to get into the property. What else? What other kinds of challenges, or maybe not challenges, conversations do you have when you're looking to get ready to buy or sell?
So I think that things like this are really great, because one of the other challenges, aside from credit and
Yeah.
savings, the biggest challenge is fear.
Uh,
Uh,
how do you overcome that? Do you have a psychology degree that we didn't talk about?
Uh, so as
No.
a realtor,
Yeah.
we wear so many hats.
That's
One of
fair.
them is
That's fair.
is therapist,
Yeah.
psychologist,
Yeah. Yeah.
motivator, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I think that the fear, because you may be the first person in your family to
Yeah.
have purchased a house. You may know somebody who had a house, they lost their house, so you're afraid,
Yeah.
so it's a lot of fear, especially because, one, this is one of the biggest property transaction you've done to date. If you're a
Yeah.
first time home buyer, this is the
Yeah.
most money you've ever had on the line. You know, you
Sure.
maybe had a car, but now you have a $300,000, $400,000 mortgage, and you have a payment, and you know you're locked in for 30 years. And I
Yeah.
think that people also think, you know, you're locked in for 30 years means I'm locked in for 30 years.
Oh, do
And it's
people
like
really think
this,
about it that
people
way?
really think about it that way, and it's
Huh.
like, oh my goodness, 30 years.
Yeah.
But the reality is a lot of buyers or you know, people who own homes usually refinance
Yeah.
or something within 3 to 5 years, so you're
Yeah.
not really locked in for 30 years. Your payment is,
Yeah.
and you can always, if you sell your house, you're still not on the hook for 30
That's
years, you
right.
know. So sometimes that
Hmm.
education piece, and it's just, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get somebody to mow the lawn. I'm going to have to get
Yeah.
somebody, you know, all of the things, because it's easy to just say, hey, rental office, come and fix X.
That's right.
But when it's on you, when it's your house, you have
Yeah.
to find professionals that can
Yeah.
do the clean your gutters, mow the lawn, all of those things. So
That's
I
right.
I have I'm always looking for vendors
Yeah.
and contractors, because it's a running thing. You get good
Yeah.
people, they get really busy, or
Yeah.
going through people, and my clients are always asking, do you have somebody that can fix my
Hmm.
my roof, or you know, this is
Yeah.
happening. So I'm always making connections with different vendors, because people need everything.
Yeah. So you never really lose your buyers, right? If someone buys now and the roof needs to be repaired 2 years from now, you're finding that they call you and
Right.
say, "That's fantastic.
Yeah, yes.
I
They
never
call
thought
and they
about it
say,
like
"Hey,
that."
well, you know, do you know a plumber? Do you know
Yeah.
this? Do you know my HVAC went out?" All different things. Some people ask me, do you know a tax professional? So they
Yeah.
really
I
ask
get
me
that a
all
lot.
different types of questions. I need a lawyer. All different. Can
Yeah.
somebody come and clean the house? You know, all of those types of services, anything associated with the house. My clients usually come back and say, "Do you know someone?"
Yeah.
So
So there's one way to get over fear for those of you watching. Find a realtor that you trust who has a good book of vendor partners. And they can kind of help point you in the right direction. Because I get a lot of on the fear, like train of thought. I get a lot of people who say, my uncle had a house and they got water in the basement,
hmm
and then he was never able to fix it, and we still can't go in his basement.
right.
So if that uncle had someone he could have called that he could trust, right,
Yes.
and say, send me somebody, instead of having to try someone, they don't quite do it right, and then you have to, so that's an angle of being a realtor I never thought about,
Yes,
actually. You
yes,
keep that connection for life.
correct. And another thing that
Yeah.
is available to buyers to help with the fear are home warranties.
Okay.
So they're all, you know, there are a million of them. They all work differently, but most of them will give you some protections for your systems, such as
Okay.
your HVAC, your
Yeah.
plumbing, your what is the other one? Heating, all of
Heating,
those
air
things. Correct.
conditioning,
Heating and air
electrical.
conditioners, those things go out. You know, if you need to get a new HVAC, it can cost, of course, 4,500, six
Yeah.
thousand, depending on the size.
That's right.
So that's a big ticket item.
Yeah.
However, with home warranties, you're able to usually call that in. If they're not able to fix it,
Yeah.
they usually replace it, and then the
Yeah.
fee is not, say, as big as if you had to pay the full 6,000.
Sure.
So that's been my experience with a lot of home warranty companies, to help ease the
Yeah.
big chunk of change that has to
Yeah,
go out
and
for
that
those
addresses the
items.
fear too. Hey, I
Correct.
have a stopgap for this.
Yes.
Now, what about counseling? Do you find counseling to be beneficial? We were talking about trying to do a counseling course here in the next, I don't know, a couple weeks or so.
Right.
But I'm always looking for ways to make specific to first time home buyers, maybe
hmm
to repeat buyers, but specifically to first time home buyers, how to make that education piece up front more robust, more tangible, more like I feel prepared, because often I get buyers. Probably 90% of my business is first time home buyers. So I get
Okay.
buyers who say, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't understand this. I didn't know that was coming. I'm always looking for ways to make that counseling piece a bit more robust up front. Do you find
hmm
counseling to be beneficial to your first time home buyers?
Yes, you
Yeah.
absolutely have to do that, with do a counseling consultation with them, go
Yeah.
over. I don't like to, because it's a big process in a
Yeah.
in a short time. Most of the time when you're in that process, I would say most of the time it's about maybe a 60-day.
Yeah.
That's
When you're
usually
under
it.
contract.
hmm
Yeah.
When you're under contract, sometimes it's even even less than 60 days, but at least from so I need you to understand what to expect,
Yeah.
because the fear of the unknown takes over if they're not
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. This is what happens next. We're going to first start with
Yeah.
looking at houses. After you get under contract, we do this. So I break it down into pieces, because I feel like when I say, if you go through the whole process, sometimes every single step, it's too overwhelming.
I see.
So,
Oh, so that's a good point. Maybe one counseling should be focused on this piece of the life cycle, and this piece, and this piece, and
mhm.
this piece.
Yep.
Hmm.
So I initially start with just, okay, this is what we're going to do. You need to start with your lender. This is, starting with your lender. That's the first part. Okay, we need to know where you're standing. Once we know where you're standing, we're going to sit down and talk about where your approval takes you. Because people say, well,
Yeah.
I want to live in this area, that area, this area. And then we don't know which area you can really be in until we
Yeah.
actually have that pre-approval. Because 500,000 in DC is different from 500,000 in
Anywhere
Virginia,
else?
and it's
Yeah.
everywhere, every single pocket, or everything. And
Yeah.
then 500,000 in one area of DC is different from 500,000
That's
in
right.
another area. So we have to
Hmm.
find out what that is, because like, well, I want to just live here, and I'm like, okay, budget
Sure.
dictates location, and
That's
that's
true.
just the truth. So after we know that, then I do another piece. Okay, this is what we're going to start looking at houses. We're going to start doing this. So breaking it down into pieces, I give them the overall
Hmm.
picture, but then break it down into pieces that we have
That
consultations
apply to
at.
where you are. That's a very good
Yes.
approach. I wonder if we could do that. So, all my mortgage bankers out there that are watching this, go get on the MISMO um, counseling board and see if we can influence change, because this makes sense. Like, if you have, usually for a first time home buyer, you have to do counseling, it's an hour or 2 hours, some of them are 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
before you get the certificate or the approval,
Yep.
or if it's HPAP, the NOE. But um, what you don't do is, like, maybe we break counseling down into, okay, you are pre-approved, here's what you need to know about being pre-approved. Okay, now you're under contract, here's what you need to know about buying a single
Mm-hmm.
family home versus a condo versus and break that counseling down into pieces over time. That might help us out if we do it as an umbrella piece.
Right.
Look at us solving problems here this morning on Coffee and Kale. Okay,
Right.
so what else haven't we talked about that either comes up recurring, is a pain point from a realtor's perspective about people getting ready? What else should we make sure our audience is aware of when we're looking at getting ready to buy or sell?
I think that they should also know that sometimes you're not ready to buy. You may want to.
Mm,
However, we sometimes there has to be a plan put in place, because you
mhm.
may not have enough. Your credit may not be at a approvable range. You may not have enough money saved. Um, those are usually the biggest things as to why people can't move forward. You don't have enough money. You don't have a high enough
Mhm.
credit to be approved. So it's a putting together a plan and working on it. So,
Mhm.
okay, your credit's at a 500. It doesn't have to stay it doesn't stay at 500 forever.
That's
The
right.
good thing about credit is it could be good, it could be bad. You can change it over time.
There you go.
So I know it's easier to get bad credit than to get it back to good. But it's not
But
impossible.
with some focused effort, anything is
Correct.
possible.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you can make changes, simple changes can change your credit score easily. So you may be too close to your limits.
Yeah.
If you pay those down the next month, your credit will, go up that next month and continue to go up. So finding out what exactly we can do to get your credit where it needs to be. Find out, okay, well, if you are approvable for a $500,000 house, you need to have about X amount saved.
Mhm.
Knowing those things always puts you in a better position.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the name of this podcast is Coffee and Kale, because
Yes.
those are the two things that keep me going. Coffee at some point in the day, kale at some point in another, though I've been a little off lately, but we're going to work on that. What about you? What couple things, handful of things keep you going, keep you charging up that hill every day?
So one is also coffee.
Okay, I like it. I like
One is
it.
also coffee. But I'm more of a iced coffee
Okay.
person.
Okay.
Even in the winter. I don't know why people are like, well, you drink iced coffee in
Really?
the winter. I'm like, well, you drink other cold beverages. I don't know why
That's
people
fair.
find.
That's fair.
I don't know why people find iced
Find
coffee
that
so
strange
weird.
in the
Yeah.
winter.
People find iced coffee so weird in the winter, and I'm like, well, don't you drink cold anything else?
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
my calendar,
Ah,
my
okay.
calendar. So I
Okay.
literally need my calendar to do anything in life that
Yeah.
is that is a personal function, that is an appointment. If it's not on my calendar,
Yeah,
I
got
may
it.
not make it.
Got it.
So
Understood.
those are really the two things on a daily basis that I must have.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us today.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you
having
for
me.
sharing your experience. This is no small thing
Yeah.
to share what you know with others. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode today. Shawanda's information will be in the description box below, so you know how to get in touch with her to follow up, ask additional questions, and have a great day. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.